Welcome, everyone, to part 6 of Transforming Relationships with the great Dr. Dave Lieberman. We're going to switch up the format a little bit. We're going to be asking some questions to Dr. Lieberman, and we'll see how it goes. Some people, we have some questions already, but everyone feel free to submit your questions. You could text or WhatsApp them to 516-455-7710, or you can email events@chazaq.org, events@chazaq.org, chazaq.org, and we will try our best to address them in future classes. As we know, with the last few months, we've been living through the COVID-19, and Baruch Hashem, the cases in New York area have gone down, but unfortunately in other parts of the country they've risen. So we're gonna have some questions about different about relationships and different aspects about the situation. So someone sent in a question. They said that now that everybody is home a lot more, that now husbands and wives, children and parents are spending more time than maybe they've ever had in their entire lives. So what should we do to strengthen our relationships during this pandemic, during the situation when maybe more disagreements are arising?
Well, that's a great question. It comes up a lot. It's been coming up a lot. I've done a number of Zooms throughout, and a lot of people have continued to do so. And it's probably one of the most frequently asked questions, in terms of relationships, because when you bring anyone together for a long period of time, it's easier for disagreements to sort of fester and for the relationship to fray a little bit, which is why it's good to, number one is to make sure that everyone has sort of an opportunity for their own space. We don't always have that ability, but to whatever degree you could sort of have your own space and your space to go to when you need it, when you need to put yourself in a timeout, that's okay. Also, it really gives you a great opportunity to work on a number of relationship skills in terms of communication. Communication is the foundation of every relationship. If you can't communicate, you can't have a productive relationship. So, even though it's our feet is to the fire when it comes to the pandemic, although it's easing now, it really is a good opportunity to be able to work on relationship building skills and to have a conversation, to learn really. A lot of people, they don't know how to have a conversation. They know how to shut down. They know how to be hostile. They know how to be passive aggressive. They know how to scream. They know how to get upset. They know how to make snide remarks. They know how to roll their eyes. They don't know how to express themselves, how they feel in a healthy, wholesome way. And two, we don't always know how to hear the other person in a way that they want to be heard. I was speaking with a couple recently, it's when something is the ability to communicate to your spouse or to anyone, to your kids to their parents, to their siblings, whatever it is, communicate how you feel in a way that you believe you're going to be heard. And for us to be able to hear somebody when they have an issue, particularly when it concerns us, is foundational to every relationship. So maybe, Rabbi, we'll go ahead and just sort of lay out a couple of do's and don'ts in terms of expressing yourself to somebody else when something is on your mind. Because, when you've got these friction points, I shared this something parenthetically, and if you need me to slow down, tell me. As you know, I tend to speed up sometimes. I give a talk for different kashrut organization, and from in the Mishkichim. But Mishkiach, it has one of the toughest jobs on the planet. And what I explain is it's a tough job for a number of reasons, but fundamentally there are three things that increase anger and frustration in a relationship. Number one is close proximity, when you're in a very close confined space. For example, there are more issues on a submarine than there are on a cruise ship. When you're in that confined space, much more challenging. A kitchen is a confined space. Two is when you have heat. Literally, in the summer, the homicide rate goes up. We've got expressions for this: hot under the collar, losing their cool. When we are hot-blooded, tempers tend to flare. In a kitchen, you've got high temperatures. Third is time pressure. When you've got that, right before Shabbos, everyone's running around. It's a good opportunity for the Satan to sort of be out and to poke at people and to make it more difficult, because time pressure adds to it. So those are the three things the Mishkiach has day in and day out if they're working in the kitchen. They've got a closed space, heat, and time pressure. So, when you are, at home and not necessarily in a closed space, but if you don't have an opportunity to leave or to go or to come as you would want to, and your routine is disrupted, rather than go to work or rather than go to learn or rather than go there and there, we find ourselves with a disrupted routine and sometimes responsibilities and obligations that were clearly well defined beforehand. That line is now blurred. So I hear a lot of people feeling resentful towards one person or the other because I'm doing this, you're home, why aren't you doing that? Or conversely is, what, I'm no longer going out, I've got to work at home, maybe you can X, Y, Z. And so, as something I say often in talks and relationships, is boundaries are necessary in order to define our personal sense of space and responsibility. And when you're at home, your boundaries become too easily blurred. So going back to the original thread of the conversation, when something is on your mind, you want to do this. Number one, and you thought this was going to be a dialogue. I said, hey, wouldn't it be great? We've got these questions. By the way, to everyone writing in, thank you so much. I appreciate the Chazaq and the really, really beautiful, nice remarks. It really is. It's very nice for this series and for a lot of what I do with Attorney Time and Chazaq. But yeah, so we thought, wouldn't this be nice to go ahead and have a give and take? And there I go. So anyway, very, very quickly, Rabbi, is number one, if something is in your mind, bring it up. But wait until you're in a sort of a calm space and the person you're speaking to is in a calm space. Bring it up in a gentle, kind way. Don't accuse the other person. Just express how you feel. All about I, not about you. When you use the word I, meaning it's not you, it's nothing you did wrong, I'm having a hard time with this. The other person won't get defensive. There's a lot that goes into it, but the job of the other person then is to listen, to understand, to empathize, validate. Doesn't necessarily mean you agree. It just means you understand where the person's coming from. And that's how you segue into a positive and cooperative conversation.
Okay,
Aren't you glad you asked?
Just on one point of what you said in the beginning of what you were saying about was that, let's say like if they would have maybe some time apart or something like that. So like, would you say that like just like time heals all wounds, or do you have to confront it, or like what would you say? Good.
Right. So sometimes time heals all wounds, but sometimes that frustration festers and into a boil that is ready to be lanced. So no, I do think that, look, what happens is when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't have perspective. It becomes all-consuming, it becomes very upsetting, and there is what to say for cooling off and giving yourself some space. After that period, if you're still bothered, by all means, because I'll say you shouldn't have the resentment built up. You should express how you feel. How you do it just makes all the difference. You should not walk around with simmering resentment. It is so destructive to the relationship because it will leak out in subconscious ways, even if you tell yourself you're okay with it. So give yourself some time and space by all means. And you'll find after, 24 hours, a little bit of time, that you're okay with it and you can at least revisit it in a healthier way. And you don't have to jump on the other person right away. But make no mistake, if it's still bothering you, you've got to bring it up. Honesty really is a very good policy.
Okay, sounds great. On a different aspect of the pandemic, so like we know that sometimes it's like it's a habit that we're always constantly checking. Oh, there's a vaccine. There's this. Oh, there's the testing and the mayor and this and that. There's all those different things that comes up. So what's like but then sometimes it rises our stress level and we can't focus. And so what should be our mindset to all the news and the media and all these different things? Like, what should be our mindset?
Great, amazing. Again, a great question. And that is, like the social distance, have social media distance. It's so destructive. You have to appreciate the psychology here of constantly checking in on what's going on. Because what you're doing is, right when this started and parents were calling and asking questions about their kids and they're worried, this and that, I said, you can't tell your kid everything's going to be okay when they're stepping over boxes of tuna fish and cartons of toilet paper because you filled your house with it because you've gone insane. So you can't say, Bubba, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. It's like, I need another 7,000 cases. It doesn't work. you have to model for your kids first and foremost. It's easier to tell your kids one thing and do something else, but Lamaisa, that's not chinuch. They look to you. So when you constantly check, when you are always seeing what's going on, and what makes you even more insane is that they're always changing their mind anyway. So you could be sure whatever comes out isn't even valid. What you're really doing is you're telling yourself is you don't have trust. The apex of bitachon is to do our shtadlis, right? You can't have bitachon without a shtadlis. And when you do your shtadlis, no more, no less, do your shtadlis, then you can have complete bitachon, knowing that whatever efforts you put in is all that's required. The consequence, the results is up to Hashem, and are completely unrelated to the specific efforts. But our job is to do a shtadlis, and however the refuah, whatever the outcome is, that is up to Hashem in our lives, and with the pandemic, whatever it is. So if you want to be informed, you want to be kept up to date, and you want to know what's going on, ask an Amish person, because it'll eventually filter down to you if you need to know something. If you're a news junkie and you want to be kept up, fine, go ahead. I'm not in a position to tell anyone they should or shouldn't. I can tell you the quickest way to make yourself crazy is to focus on everything in your life that you can't control. That's it. It's a recipe for being neurotic, is to focus on it. So what happens is during the pandemic is everyone begins to focus on the one thing that they have no control over. There's something in psychology called the focusing illusion. Very quickly, basically says that nothing is as important as you think it is while you're thinking about it, but thinking about it magnifies its importance. So the more you think about it, the more you can become consumed about it. The more you become consumed about it, the more you tell yourself that it's important, and it ends up creating this cascade of anxiety. So the good answer, or the long answer to your very good short question, is stay away as much as you can from the craziness with the media.
Okay, and a different aspect of media is it's just that, like sometimes like we might see or get a text or WhatsApp, or we'll see like online or something, a picture of, let's say, a bar mitzvah, a wedding, something like that. But instead of having 100 people, 200 people, etc., there's 10 people, there's 20 people, or whatever it is, like a few close friends, whatever it is. So the groom, the bride, they might have imagined their whole life, they're going to be like the center of attention, this and that, and now there's only 8 people, there's 20 people, whatever it is. So like, what encouragement could we give these people who are just celebrating their special day and everything? Like, what's the mindset?
Right. Look, everyone is going to experience it differently. We made a bar mitzvah like right at the height of it, we tried to make it as geschmack as possible. We actually had our relatives come by in the cars. This is when no one was going anywhere, and honk and hold up signs and, try and do that. And I reached out to a couple of great people to make short little video clips for my son. I'm not going to make he's such a great guy. I'm going to say it publicly. I'm going to get in trouble for this. Actually, I'm not, because he does it now. Nissan Black. I'll tell you that Nissan Black is such a sweetheart. I reached out to whatever, and he sent over my son a really beautiful, just personal video. And now I should just give him a little shout out. He's got a great program, which he recently started, of giving shout outs to people. And he's got a website. I'm not sure what it is, but you can Google it or find a proper internet and take a look. And he's got a service where he'll give shout outs, and it's really terrific. But you know what? You make the best of it. And it's important really to remind yourself, this is true for anything, of what's important. When you get married, the most important thing is that, the chassan and the kala are there. Everything else is gravy, whether the band or this or that. So if you get caught up in the frivolities, the narishkeit, the stuff, again, I get why it's important, these things, these, not call them details, that could be, very important to some people. I understand that. I am only suggesting that if you pull back the lens and look from a wider perspective and ask yourself, what's really important here? What's our focus? Is it on all these extraneous, all of this stuff? Or is it really that, your son is reaching a milestone in terms of his, becoming a bar mitzvah bacher? Or is it that you're getting married to your zivug? And remind yourself of what's important, and all the stuff will fade away. I'm not saying it's easy and that these trappings aren't very nice and, important to a lot of people, but the degree to which you get caught up in it is the degree to which you're going to be bothered if you don't have it. Does that make sense?
Yep. And going back, not this question, but the previous one about Emunah Bitachon, about that we know that I don't know the exact number, 30 million. I don't know exactly. Unemployment rates have skyrocketed, and people, even if they're not being laid off completely, they have to take tremendous pay cuts and stuff like that. So, and I guess not only just to encourage other people, but they themselves. How do you have like Emunah Bitachon in our times when you just lost your job, you have to support a family, you have 5 children, or whatever it is?
Look, I'm not so wise or foolish as to be able to give you an answer of how you can just, be perfectly at peace by snapping your fingers. I can walk you through the logic of the psychology and what's necessary, and from a Torah perspective, obviously. And that brings us to the difference between Emunah and Bitachon. Emunah is you believe and you recognize that this is Hashem runs the world, that this is Hashem's world, everything goes according to his plan. Bitachon is the recognition of all of that is geared entirely for your good and for your growth. What bridges that gap between Emunah and Bitachon is action, meaning that you can't believe one thing and do something else and expect to have Bitachon. A lot of people have Emunah. They believe in Hashem. Yes, it's Hashem's world. He runs the world. But then they get worried. So why is because they have Emunah, but it's in that space again between Emunah and Bitachon. The way you bridge that space is by living consistently with what you know to be true. Therefore, the degree to which you can move through your day, move through your conversations, move through your life, recognizing that everything that Hashem does is geared for your good and for your growth, tailor-made, custom-made for you to optimize your potential, you look at the world entirely different.
Very nice. And I guess we'll just end off just about, there was somebody mentioned to me, they were saying about the dating, the relationships regarding to dating in the last 100 days, however many days it's been, is it's a totally different meaning, and people are doing it over Zoom or the phone or different stuff like that. So what should our approach be to the virtual dating? Should we just not take it seriously? Should we do it? Not? What should we do?
Yeah. Wow, you're asking a great question that deserves more time than we can. We don't want to cut into the good rabbi's time. Who, by the way, those of you that I'm sure you're listening to Rabbi Goldwasser, but he's, by the way, I'm going to answer the question, but he is so poised, so meticulous, and articulates so beautifully the message. I teach public speaking, by the way, and I don't sound a fraction as polished as he is, and the content is off the charts. He's an extraordinary talent. But to answer your question is, look, this is a changing world. It doesn't work for everyone, Zoom. I do think that if it's something you're comfortable with, that you shouldn't put your dating on hold because of it. It does afford you more opportunities, and I think there are some very good safety measures to put into place to make sure, for example, that ideally the date is set up with a shadchan. There's a set amount of time to speak. You can't have, get on and then you see what the person looks like and you're like, oh, well, sorry, fuzzy internet connection. And, you can't do that. It really has to be, menched out and as structured as possible. Now, again, there are a number of safeguards to put into place. I think it's feasible, again, if you're comfortable with it. And I certainly get why people would not be, because some people don't translate well through Zoom. Others, by the way, are much more comfortable with it because they may be typically a little bit more nervous. And Zoom affords them the opportunity to be in their own comfort zone, maybe their own space, and they're more relaxed. So you really have to see if it's right for you and your personality and right for your comfort level. And if that's so, then, move forward responsibly.
Okay, that sounds great. And I think this is a great format. And well, I think this should definitely continue. Just want to remind everyone that send in your questions, just like these questions, and about relationships, about character, about human nature, whatever you want. It's definitely will be addressed, and I think it'll be great. Send your questions to 516-455-7710 or email events@chazaq.org. Thank you everyone for joining us.